Good evening, everybody. My name is Josie Gamble, and thank you for joining me on this session. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I'm from Bath originally, and I live now in Wolverhampton in the West Midlands. And I actually came here to study. I studied at the University of Wolverhampton, did a degree in design, and went on to lecture there for 7 years. But I also came to Wolverhampton to be part of the church plant 26 years ago now. So I'm one of the founding members and was very involved in all the kind of leadership and senior leadership for about 10 years. And then I went self-employed and I run my own business, but I've through that, been awarded the Telegraph NatWest 100 Female Entrepreneurs to Watch back in 2022, and done TEDx Wolverhampton talk, which was really great fun. And as I say, I run my own business called Gamble Design. So my daily work involves brand, graphic, and web design. But I also launched the founder and director of the Christian Creative Network and the Christian Creative Directory. And some of this journey is going to come out through what I'm going to share today. But I just briefly wanted to kind of do that intro, just kind of so you know a little bit of me and where I come from. But I'm going to talk to you today on the title, If Your Vision Doesn't Scare You, It's Not Big Enough. And this has been quite a kind of a mantra for me, and it sounds great, but I've got to say that I can't take credit for this title, if you like. It actually comes from the quote that it's actually, if your dreams do not scare you, they're not big enough, by Ellen Johnson, and she was the first woman president of Liberia. But I actually chose to replace the word dreams for vision, because actually for me, dream kind of feels a little bit selfish, whereas a vision talks of purpose, calling, and destiny. And I actually first heard this quote on the Lions program, which I'll come to later on in my journey. But the first thought that came to my head was, well, why does a vision need to scare you? Surely, if it scares you, you're taking on too much. You're biting off more than you can chew. You're running before you can walk. But the answer they gave was actually that if you can do it, you don't need God. If your vision doesn't scare you, you can do all of it. And if you can do all of it, you don't need God. So the answer I'm going to bring to you, or the question I'm going to pose to you is actually, have you got a vision, but you think you can do it, but then by it not being big enough, maybe you're just blocking out actually God getting involved. And actually, by allowing yourself to dream big, we need God. We need to partner with God. We need to catch his heavenly vision. And after all, he sees the big plan. He sees the big picture. And we need to align our vision with his divine plan. And actually, in Hebrews 11, verse 6, it does say, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And I think it's the faith element that makes us dream bigger and allows God to come and partner with us. And by very nature, walking by faith can be scary, not having all the answers, but trusting in an almighty God for provision and wisdom. So God isn't wanting us to have big visions to scare us, but rather so that he can partner with us. And he wants us to dream big. He wants us to have big vision. And so that's what I'm going to hopefully be unpacking in this session today. So it's worth saying actually from the start that actually to be scared is not the same as being fearful. And actually fear is just a broader emotional response to a perceived threat or well-being, but actually being scared is more of an immediate reaction to a specific situation or stimulus. So you can actually be scared but not fearful. And you can actually be fearful and not scared. So it was just worth highlighting that, I think, from the beginning. But my talk today is part of the Stronger Conference, comes under the networking and resourcing stream, which focuses on how to bring visions and dreams into reality. So I'm simply going to share from my journeys, particularly probably in launching the Christian Creative Network and the Christian Creative Directory, and to talk about some of the behind the scenes and principles that I live by, and sharing some of those top tips. So it's worth actually just unpacking a little what the Christian Creative Network is and what the Christian Creative Directory is. So 7 years ago, nearly nearly 8 years ago now, I launched Christian Creative Network, which is simply a kind of business networking model that gathers together local Christian creatives. So we have 7 branches in the UK, and our whole mission or vision, if you like, is to champion creativity in the church, and we're doing that through this national network of local branches. And I also have the coupled with that kind of a sister project is the Christian Creative Directory, and that is an online directory that simply connects Christian creatives with businesses, churches and charities that need them. So it kind of answers the question, you know, maybe you're a church or a charity or a business, you need a website designing. Where do you go to find Christian creatives? And so this is the only directory of its kind. And since we launched 3 years ago, it's nearly 3 years ago, we've actually managed to connect hundreds of creatives with jobs and roles and opportunities simply by people going on and finding them on our directory. But we also advertise creative jobs and opportunities there as well. So just a kind of a brief overview of that. But as I said, my talk today will kind of maybe take you behind the scenes, talk about some principles and tips. And so hopefully you will be able to draw from my experience. So my first kind of top tip, if you like, in making your vision a reality is that you don't have to have all the answers to start. I think this is quite important, because actually if you wait for all the answers, you'll never start. I actually don't know anyone who had a vision or a dream that knew all the answers before they started. And actually it's only by taking the first step that you can then start getting to the next things. And actually sometimes your steps can become hurdles, and you can only get to the next one once you've got over the first hurdle. So you don't have to have all the answers, and I think that's particularly poignant within the context of, if your vision doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. We're talking about big dreams, you know, doing things that will make an impact, have a difference, that seems scary, but one of the things that might seem scary is that you don't have all the answers, but nobody does. So as soon as you kind of realize that, it kind of takes away some of the scariness. I know for me, when I launched the Christian Creative Network, I was 100% sold on the vision, and that was the to champion creativity in the church and the need for gathering together local Christian creatives. But I was only 80% sold on the model. And I do remember kind of almost coming to a mental sticking point, and I kind of went round and round in circles on the model of how we were going to structure these networks. And it was several months, and I felt like I was failing, and I felt discouraged because I was just, well, this one, by this one, by this one. And I ended up going full circle, and I landed on the fact that God had brought me to a model that I had experienced through another business network for a reason, and that I was okay to move forward feeling 80% confident with it. It transpires that later down the line we adapted the model, and now I'm 100% confident with it. But that's just an example of, actually, you know, you don't have to have everything sorted before you move forward and do something, because the answers may come as you're doing it. So you don't have to have all the answers to start. Move one step at a time. You know, I bought a house and it was a fixer-upper, and we're here 17 years later and we're still doing work. You know, I pictured from the moment I walked into the house, I could see what it could look like, but it's taken years to get there. And it just starts one step at a time, and you can do what you can do at the time. You know, the lounge was our first room we decorated, and we literally just stripped the wallpaper off and painted the bare plaster. At the time, it was the best looking room in the house because the whole house was a bit derelict. But now, 17 years later, we're just about to plaster and paint and do it properly, having gone around the rest of the house doing it properly. And so it's just, remember things that you've done in the past, like may have done it incrementally, but we try, sometimes we think we've got to have it all sorted and jump before we can take that first step. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. You've probably heard this many times. If you've got a vision, or if you're leading a project, or you're about to lead a project, or you've got an idea, but actually this is so true. Things start small. I don't know how accurate this picture is. This is Jeff Bezos in 1999 when he started Amazon. You know, the founder story of him starting in this sort of derelict, empty room. The same with Steve Jobs, his founder story of starting Apple in his parents' garage. You know, these guys started small. I know there may have been investments and other things, but every idea starts somewhere. And actually, that's not to be despised. You just move at the pace you can and start with what you've got. And I started with an idea for this network, and I just started talking to people, started sharing ideas. You know, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but you've got to take that first step. And for me, it was just sharing this idea with a friend. And then she said, yes, let's do it. So we just pioneered and we did a launch, and people came and thought, oh, this has got legs. What do we do? Well, the vision was to have a network, a directory, and recognition awards. And the vision was always three-pronged from day one. But we started with step one, a network. And then 5 years later, we got funding to do the directory. And we still haven't done the recognition awards, but it's still there as part of the vision. And that still scares me a bit. And each one of those steps has scared me because I've not had the answers. I've not done it before. It's new ground, it's new territory. So what does your step look like? And everyone's steps are going to be different. Is it just putting it down in writing? Is it sharing it with someone? Is it actually doing a tester and doing a pilot to see how the people respond? So dream big, but take one step at a time. Number 3, seek God. Seek God, pray. Pray. You know, the disciples fished all night, and one word from God to fish on the other side, and they caught more than they could handle. They fished all night and caught nothing. But God's word didn't make it easy for them. They still had their skills, their tools, their boat, but God told them where to fish, and that was the right answer for them. So seek God first. 4, get alongside like-minded people. This is really crucial. Pioneers and entrepreneurs think a certain way. They challenge the normal. And actually, if you get alongside people that, it would be like fire fueling fire, iron sharpening iron. And I went on a Christian business entrepreneur program called The Lions, and that really fueled my fire and helped me refine my idea and my vision. And pad out or fill out and answer some of those questions were the things that I didn't know. You know, you might need to put together a steering group to give you advice or an advisory group, but all of these things are steps that you can take to make your vision a reality. 4, what scares you at the beginning will quickly become your normal. Again, when we bought this house, it was quite a big house, and we were like, how are we going to fill it? And generally, within a week, we thought, oh, it's not that big. And what scares you at the beginning will become your normal. Remember the first time you rode a bike, it was scary, but now you could do it without even thinking years later. When you learn to drive a car, it's really scary, but then you do it without thinking every single day. There's always things in the past you've overcome, and it's the same with a project or an idea. But being scared is not the same as being fearful. And by seeking God first, we address our fear, and He then comes and partners with us. Number 6, what is in your hand? Moses used a staff to part the Red Sea. David used a sling to defeat Goliath. What has God you going to use that's in your hand? You know, it was still his David's skill that killed Goliath, but he probably was scared, but it wasn't hard because he does it day in, day out. So actually, you know, it doesn't have to be difficult what you do. And often what makes things hard is what's going on in our mind and our thinking. But actually, what is in your hand and what have you got that you bring to the table? I bring a certain skill set of design and innovation, and that's what I've poured into my projects with the network and the directory. Number 7, expect setbacks. We need to accept that we don't always make the right decision, and we will screw up royally sometimes. The understanding that failure is not the opposite to success is part of success. Understanding that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of success. is a really crucial thing to understand. And I didn't realize that at first. And I used to try and avoid failure. And actually, what I was really doing was avoiding any growth. Failure is part of your success. And once you stop avoiding failure and embracing it, it will revolutionize your vision and your ideas. Plans may change, models may change, but the vision can remain the same. You know, I said earlier on that I was 80% happy with the model of how we did our meetings and our networks and our gathering. But I always knew it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. Then lockdown happened and everything stopped. And it was really interesting because you could really reevaluate and assess where things were at. And then after lockdown, we actually shifted up. We were meeting once a month. And then I realized when we launched, I realized that was a bit too much. It was quite a lot of extra effort. And we changed it and we now meet quarterly. We've introduced team and we have streams. And those are the things that were missing from my vehicle for the vision, if you like, when I first launched. But it was only through trial and error and seeing what worked and didn't work that we refined the vehicle. The vision stayed the same, to champion creativity and to gather together local Christian creatives. But the vehicle can change. So expect setbacks because they will happen. And disappointment, disagreement, discouragement and failure are the two surest stepping stones to success. Number 8, there are 2 journeys that go on in any project, bringing a vision to reality. There's the journey of the project, but there's also your journey of personal growth. And sometimes it's hard to see them separate, but actually sometimes there's something going on in me where maybe a fear has come up or an insecurity or a lack of skill and ability, and I have a bit of a wobble. But that doesn't mean the project's not viable. That doesn't mean it's not a good idea. That doesn't mean it's not needed. It's just I'm having a little bit of a wobble and I just need to settle myself, seek God, and maybe just pause any activities. And then when I'm coming through that, I can then carry on again with the journey. And sometimes the journey the project might hit a hurdle and it might seem hard, but inside my journey, I feel more confident than ever. And so it's quite helpful to just remember that there are 2 journeys going on at any time with a project. And 9, to look back on how far you've come. It's really important because there will always be, pioneering is always hard. There's always struggles, there's always new things, but just remember to look back how far you've come. I love just thinking of my house again, looking back and seeing old photos and going, oh, that room used to look awful. It looks nice now. I forgot about that. And we easily forget how far we've come and what God has brought us through. And it's the same with our projects and any dreams and visions that we have, that just it's one step at a time, but look back how far you've come. So really in summary, I had 9 points. I was going to try and do a 10th, but 9 it seemed to land on 9. You don't have to have all the answers to start. Dream big, but take it one step at a time. Seek God, get alongside like-minded people. What scares you at the beginning will quickly become your normal. What is in your hand? What is it that God has gifted you to bring to your project? Expect setbacks. There are 2 journeys. And remember to look back on how far you've come. That brings me just to the end of my session